This video is going to cover tax. Tax is an amount of money added to the price of certain goods and services. Tax is usually calculated as a percentage of the cost of the item. Some common forms of tax are sales tax, income tax, property tax, and hotel tax. Money earned from taxes is used to pay for government-provided services. So here in Pennsylvania, we're going to talk specifically about our sales tax in this next portion of the lesson. And most of what we're going to talk about will be sales tax. We'll also hit a little bit on some other taxes that are used as fees, like hotel taxes and city taxes and things like that. A sales tax is a state or local tax that is added to the price of an item or service. The total cost to purchase an item is the selling price plus the sales tax. Sales tax varies depending on the city or state in which you live. In Pennsylvania, our sales tax is 6%. If you travel to another state, for example, Delaware does not have a state sales tax. But if you travel to New York, for example, their sales tax rate is going to be a little bit higher. So you would pay a greater percentage of the price. Let's talk about how to calculate prices after tax. So there's two different methods we're going to talk about. The first method is to multiply the percent of tax as a decimal by the total price. Remember, to change a percent to a decimal, we move that decimal point to the left 2 places. The answer will give you the amount of tax that is paid. And then what you'll do is you'll add this number to the original price to get the final price after tax. I sometimes get students who ask me, do we need to add or subtract the numbers? Well, if it's tax, that's something that's being added on. So we're going to add the amount of the tax to the original price to get the final price after tax. There is an arrow here that basically says if you're asked to find the amount of tax that will be paid, use the first step of method 1. That's going to be more useful than doing method 2 and then having to kind of backtrack. So the example that's given here is if you have 6% sales tax paid on a pair of jeans that cost $15. 6% as a decimal is 0.06. Multiply that by 15 to get 0.90, which is 90 cents of tax. That makes sense because we pay 6 cents for every dollar times $15 is 90 cents. 15 plus 90 cents is going to get us $15.90 for the final price with tax. Now, the second method is the one that I like to use. It is a little bit shorter. It can be done, even though it shows 2 steps, it can really be done with only showing one single step, and we'll talk about that. What I do is I add the percent to 100. So whatever the percent of the tax is, I add it to 100, and then I write that percentage answer as a decimal. So in Pennsylvania, 106% tax would be 1.06. I guess I shouldn't say 106% tax, but 6% on top of the full price. 100 plus 6% is 106%, or 1.06. Then we'll multiply that decimal by the price. This will give you the final price after tax. So again, here in PA, I just take a price for an item times 1.06, and that will get me the final price with 6% sales tax. Now, there are some things that are not taxable, and you do not pay tax on those. I don't know the full list of all of those items. It's something you could definitely look up, but I know there are lots of items that we purchase pretty regularly that are not taxed. So the example we have here, kind of an old school example, I probably should have updated this, but let's say we have a cell phone that costs $300 and you're going to pay 6% tax on that. 100 plus 6 is 106%. That's going to be equal to 1.06. If you take 1.06 times 300, that gets you a final price of $318. Now, I say that I like this method a little bit better, and the reason why I like this one a little bit better is because the only step you really have to show is this step here that I'm highlighting in yellow. That first step, the one that's up above it, you could probably do that mentally. However, if you're doing method 1, you have to show both of the steps. And so it's a little bit more work. It can actually be a significant amount more work if you have multiple discounts or different taxes and tips and things that are included. So I do like method 2. If you do need to find the amount of tax that's paid, method 1 works a little bit better just doing that first step. Otherwise, if you use method 2, you now have to take 318 minus 300 to get the amount of tax that is paid. Now, the book does use proportions for finding the amount of tax that is paid. I don't think this is a bad idea. I know that we have a lot of students who really like proportions, but I do think it sometimes adds to more work in the long run. So it says, for example, if Juan purchases a $10 t-shirt with a sales tax rate of 7.5%, you can determine how much the sales tax will be by setting up a proportion where T represents the amount of tax. So T in tax dollars out of $10 for that purchase equals 7.5% tax out of 100. You cross multiply, you're going to determine that the amount of tax it is paid is 75 cents on that purchase. That being said, if you want to find the final price with tax, then you still have to add that on to the $10 price. So it does end up giving a little bit of extra work, I think, but if you prefer proportions, there's no harm in doing it, which is why I said in this box, this is the way the book shows it, but if I'm doing this in my own life, I'm going to use method 2. It's a little bit shorter. All right, so let's take a look at 4 examples. This video only covers these first 4 simple, straightforward examples. I'm going to use method 2 just to make life pretty easy. We will round our final answer to the nearest cent, and we are finding the total cost with tax included. So if we buy a $45 sweater and we pay 6% tax on that, what I would do is do 100% plus 6% to get 106%, which is 1.06. Again, you could probably skip that step and go right to this next step, which is 1.06 times the purchase price of the sweater, $45. 1.06 times 45 gets you a final price of $47.70. For number 2, $855 TV and 7.5% tax. So 100 plus 7.5 is 107.5%. Move that decimal point to the left 2 places to get 1.075. When we take 1.075 times the $855 purchase price, we end up getting 919.125. Quick reminder for rounding, we currently have 12 cents after the decimal point followed by a 5, so that 12 cents will round up to 13 cents. I know sometimes when we deal with money, it always makes sense to round up. When you purchase something, you don't actually always round up when we talk about tax. So this is something that you will round to the nearest cent. You don't necessarily always round up no matter what that third digit is that's in the thousands place. All right, let's take a look at number 3, $49.95 pair of shoes, 5% tax. 100 plus 5 is 105%. That is 1.05. Take 1.05 times $49.95. This one's also going to get us a decimal. We get 52.4475. So because we have 44 cents followed by a 7, that is going to round up to 45 cents. So $52.45. And our final example here, $1,029.99 cell phone. I did update this one, so it's a little bit more reasonable to prices today. 6.5% tax, so 100 plus 6.5 is going to be 106.5%, which is 1.065. All right, we'll take 1.065 times $1,029.99. For our decimal, we end up getting 1,096.939. The rest of the digits don't really matter. We have 93 cents followed by a 9, so we will round 93 cents up to 94 cents. Again, you don't have to round up. You do round to the nearest cent. When we deal with sales tax, that's the way it is dealt with in real life. All right, so that gives us the basics of calculating prices after tax. Tips is going to be pretty similar when we talk about that. And if we change it from sales tax to like a hotel tax, for example, we're going to treat that the same way as well. And we'll get to those things here coming up in the next few days. Thanks for listening.